Khorne here, and today I will be sharing with you some of my funny and weird Doomstacks that I have made. Why did I make these, you might ask? Well, the answer is simply because I could. Sadly, I never asked myself if I should bring these monstrosities to life. The first one of these are the Frolickers Bubonic Nurgling Doomstack. One you can sadly no longer replicate. Now you might remember that after the Chaos Dwarf patch, there was a bug where the newest regiments of renown could be recruited as many times as you wanted, after a cooldown of 10 turns had passed. As soon as I learned of this, a dark plan began to take shape in my mind. These regiment of renowned Nurglings, unlike their regular variant, have a passive ability to inflict damage every time they are struck by an attack. So I set out to work on the best way to increase their resistances and have the enemy kill themselves on my adorable little Nurglings. The first thing I needed was to raise their physical resistance as much as possible. I did this with the Redline skill and the unique plague that increases physical resistance for the entire army. But this brings me up to only 46% physical resistance. So next, I wanted to reduce the enemy weapon strength. I did this by recruiting another regiment of renown, the Barons of the Bog Pox Riders, as they lowered the enemy weapon strength by 10%. Next, a Warrior Bane weapon, which lowers the weapon strength by another 8%. The Banner, Icon of Eternal Virulence, for another 20%, their natural poison attack, which reduces it by another 15%, and the Lore of Death spell Soul Blight, which reduces it by another 25%. This means I reduce the enemy weapon strength by 53% and occasionally up to 78%. I then searched for an alliance with the Chaos Dwarfs. Why, you might ask? Well, to get the Lamassu. And why the Lamassu? Well, because they remove magic attack, meaning that all of the damage I take is reduced by our 46% physical resistance. So my little Nurglings should be taking only about 25% of the total weapon strength of the enemy units, while dishing out damage at the same time. Now, is this a particularly strong Doomstack? Well, no. It can take out multiple enemy armies and not take a lot of damage. But the battles are long and uninteresting, especially if you use the Nurglings to dish out most of the damage. You have to blob up your units and position the Lamassu as to cover as much of your front line as possible. Continuously cast Soul Blight and the Lore of Nurgle spell, which gives you additional damage reflection when getting hit. The battles do last a long time, but come on. You can't tell me that watching your adorable little Nurglings get hundreds of kills and dish out more than 15,000 damage doesn't bring joy to your putrid soul and earn you Grandfather Nurgle's eternal favor. The next one is the complete opposite of the previous one, and you can still create it. If you ever wanted to play a Mongol horde in Warhammer 3, well, now you can with the Marauder horseman of Tzeench. So what makes this a Doomstack? Well, you have the timber as a resource on the map, where each building that you construct gives you plus 25% ammunition for Marauder horseman units. There's also the obsidian resource, which increases missile strength for these units as well. So, in the right numbers, you can boost your Marauder horsemen to ridiculous levels, but they still aren't invincible. So I chose the Tzeench variant for two reasons. They have flaming missiles and inflict warp flame to deal an additional 10% fire damage to enemies. And they have the barrier, which helps them a lot in skirmishes against units that have range superiority. Now in the Dark Gods boons, I also get missile resistance from the Undivided boons, 25% increase to barrier, and another 15% ammunition from Tzeench's boons. Your red line also gives you some stat boosts, and I put another 3 Chaos Sorcerers of Slaanesh to increase the speed of our army. They can also cast Phantasmagoria, which stops the enemy units from moving and catching up to your Marauder horsemen. But unlike an army where you can just sit still and watch the enemy kill themselves, here you have to micro like your life depends on it. And a split second of you losing focus can lose you the battle. You have to constantly care for the enemy fast units and use your Slaaneshi heroes to stop them in their place. Even though you can outrun most enemies, the maps in Warhammer 3 are quite small, and you will eventually run out of places to retreat to before you are caught and killed in melee. You also have to be very careful when engaging enemy range units, as most of them will have longer range than your horsemen. So what you should do is attack, shoot your shots, take damage, and after your barrier drops, retreat to regenerate it. Rinse and repeat. Battles, however, last for ages, and if the enemy has too many units, you will have to resort to using magic to get rid of what's left. This is also a Doomstack you don't want to bring to fight range heavy armies like the High Elves have, but rather melee focused factions. And sieges are a do not attempt. Overall, the Marauder horseman can get hundreds of kills and tens of thousands of damage, but this definitely isn't an easy Doomstack to use. And finally, we have an army consisting of heroes belonging to 8 different races, including a legendary hero in Henry Le Massif. So, how do you build this? Well, it is very simple. You steal heroes from your allies. The best way to do this is when playing Norsca, you have a technology to research after occupying Nagorond, which makes all of your heroes immortal. This means that if you borrow an ally army which has heroes in it and then intentionally get that army killed, all of those heroes will now belong to you. What also makes Norsca ideal for this is the legendary Exalted Great Unclean One you get for dedicating to Nurgle. His trait being a plus 30% hit points increase to all lords and heroes in your faction. His army also gets another 15% physical resistance, 50% healing cap, and regeneration. Add up all of the combat stat modifiers these heroes have in their skill lines and from items, and even Archeon can't last for more than 10 seconds in a fight against them. This truly is a Doomstack where having a brain is optional. Just point and press right click. A 12,000 HP giant dies so quickly that the pain and suffering you will go through will start to seem worth it. Well, these aren't all the weird and funny Doomstacks I have made, but I'm pretty sure that you've never seen this before. And probably for good reason, as no one is mad enough to create monstrosities such as these. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe for future content, as I am very close to becoming monetized. Thank you all for watching, and until next time.
Khorne fights as one.